My mum's uncle was a chef and was a restaurateur. Her brother was a restaurateur. I grew up on a farm, so everything was about food and cooking. I was the middle child in my family, so mum and dad. Well, mum actually inherited two children from dad's first marriage. So when mum was 21, she had a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, and by the time she was 26, she had 4 of her own. And then there was a gap because I was an antichrist. Apparently, I was really difficult, really, because I always wanted attention all the time.
So she wasn't having any
She
more.
said that I was the most horrible child, like horrible. She'd be on the telephone and start kicking her because I wasn't getting attention. So I used to kind of do my own stuff. Like I had a little garden of my own, and I used to cook in the kitchen. My brothers and sisters used to tease me, and they still do, and I still react all the time. So that was my thing. Well, my thing was cooking. My thing was baking, cooking. I never imagined for a moment that I would have become a chef and I would have worked professionally. People very often say, Andrew, you're a cook, you're not a chef. And I said, well, I think if you work in the industry professionally and that's how you earn money, you're professionally, I guess, a chef, because I never trained. I went to agricultural college and I studied agriculture.
Did you?
Yeah, in the UK, yeah. So it was like farming, pig husbandry and dairy and sheep and
Because
tillage.
it's farm at home.
Well, yeah, there was that, but it was agriculture with business. And in Dublin or in Ireland, you could either do straight agriculture and UCD, Ag Science, or you could do a business degree. You couldn't combine the two. So I went to Harper Adams Agricultural College in Shropshire in the UK and did that. And then I did a master's degree in economics in Newcastle University. So my background absolutely was not cooking, but I always cooked. I always loved cooking. And then when I moved back to Ireland, I worked in the family business, which was a pork and bacon business. And then years later, I started importing and distributing olive oil. And then people would sort of have asked me whether I would, cook in their homes and do private dinner parties, and I started doing that. And that evolved into doing weddings, and then that evolved into doing large-scale parties. And then I thought, well, actually, I need a premises to do my cooking, because I was doing it. At the time, I was living with my grandmother in Dunleary. She was ill, so I moved in with her. So myself and my mum shared the caring with my aunt and various other family siblings and members. And I was doing all my catering in her kitchen, and then filling a van and then going to do a wedding. So I was looking for a premises, and I found a place on Drury Street. And then I thought, why don't I start doing private parties? Like, people ask me all the time, will I do private parties? So that then evolved very organically into doing parties, corporate events, launch parties. Last year was our first operational year with 4 weddings. We were due to have 25 this year. Very sadly, we've had to kind of move all bar 1. We've lost one because the couple were coming in from Washington DC and they couldn't travel, so that's the only reason why they cancelled it. But next year we've got a lot.
Good.
So that'll be good. We've got a good pipeline of business for next year, and it's the same here as well. And we have a good mix of business. We do a lot of corporate work, a lot of conferencing, weddings, private parties. So we have a mix of a really nice, good mix of work that we do here.
And before we kicked off the interview, you dropped a line about offering something very nice, which meant a lot to me. So what were you going to give us?
I'm going to give you some cookbooks, and I'm also going to offer you the place to run a disco brunch.
A disco brunch?
Which is great crack.
It sounds it. Tell us what a disco brunch is.
Well, what we did it last year for charity, and it worked really, really well. So I think the charity charged something like 40 or 45 euro per head. And then what we do is we do like a kind of a brunch buffet. Now, obviously with COVID-19 and depending on how things kind of evolve, we may have to have kind of like serve it at the table, whatever else. But we had like 6 different items on the menu, and people could have as much as they wanted. And we were doing cocktails, and we were doing Bloody Marys with prawns in them. I had a DJ. I had 2 DJs. We had 2 comedians, and they all did it for the charity, and it was great crack.
I'd say the place was rocking, wasn't it?
It was. I think the average age was 65. It was probably 95% of the female variety, and it was great. It was really good fun.
Good,
really
well,
good fun.
we look forward to that.
Yeah, so we'll do that.
Yeah,
I think
that's
it'd be lovely.
amazing. Now, tell me, what keeps Andrew awake at night?
What keeps me awake at night is mad. Like, I have a friend, Ben, and he said he doesn't sleep terribly well. I said, well, I don't really sleep really well either. I'm just like, buzzing all the time. So his doctor prescribed him some kind of like, something to kind of cool or his brain. But what I've started to do now is I've got an app on my phone, so it's a little bit of meditation. So it's like you're lying there in the bed. It's like, start with your toes. Imagine your toes and imagine them working up towards your heels and your knees. And I fall asleep. It's great. It's good to be positive, but realistic at the same time.
It is, but I think the positivity does definitely. You have to find it somewhere. You have to dig deep and find it and move on.
You do, and also, I have to kind of lead my team as well. So, to a large degree, they're looking up to me, to navigate our way around, what has been probably the most incredible year that anybody's ever experienced. I mean, I've spoken to my parents about it in their lifetimes. They've never experienced anything like it.
No.
Most people have never experienced anything like this. Uncharted waters.
Completely, and I think to come out the other side of it has definitely been a learning curve, and as you said, we might not necessarily go back to the way it was, but we certainly learned from it. And we'll move on.
Yeah, I think so. Somebody said to me a couple of weeks ago, I was filling in an application form for renting a car or something. I haven't owned a car for 4 years. I sold it because I don't need it. I live in the city centre. But anyway, they said, "Oh, what age are you?" And I said, I'm 36, but 37 shortly. And they said, "Really?" I said, "No, God, no, sorry, 40s. I'm 46. I'm 47 shortly." So I missed 10 years.
What age are you on the inside?
On the inside, I'm probably like 18. Probably.
I think that's what keeps you going, though, isn't it? Like your mom is the same. I met your mom when I was here, and she's just an incredible woman. What age is she now?
Well, she said to me recently, "Andrew, you just grow up. You're nearly 50." Because I'd said something stupid and I was being silly. And I said, "Well, you're nearly 80. She's now 73, 74.
And is she still flying around the place?
Flying around the place, yeah.
She's an incredible inspiration.
And Dad as well. Like Dad's 86. He's got his polytunnel at home. He's up every morning and he's into the polytunnel and he's doing his crossword and he's got his routine. And they haven't left the house throughout the whole pandemic. My sister Emma is living with them, and my other sister Kate lives next door. So they just didn't have to leave, so they were grand in their own little cocoon.
Isn't it great genes to have? You can you've those genes in you. That's amazing.
No, it's amazing. But there's another really interesting story about Ballintubbert, which we're involved in as well. So Charles Preston is one of the owners. He said to me, we went for a pint in Bowes across the way after we had a meeting here. He said, "So I know your father was Irish, but he went to school in the UK, but he was actually, my dad was born in England as well." And he said, "Where did he go to school?" And I said, "He went to Sherburn in Dorset." And he said, "Really? What year?" And I said, "Oh, probably about like 1954, 1955. So did his father."
What?
Anyway, it turns out they're on the same rugby team. So we had a picture, and I texted Dad immediately. And he took the picture on his wall. So there was Chaz's dad, my dad. Anyway, move forward like 2 weeks later, and Chaz said to me, and this is another interesting thing, in 1904, Cecil Day-Lewis was born in Ballintubbert House. It was Daniel Day-Lewis's father, who was the poet laureate. And he had 4 children. Anyway, so moving forward 2 weeks later, Chaz came back to me and said, "I was just talking to my father, and we got another picture of my father and your father playing hockey in Sherburn. And who was in the bottom left corner of the picture? Nicholas Day-Lewis, whose father was born in Ballintubbert." So like there was a three-way connection. 1868, a guy called Stephen Parker bought a foundry in Dublin. They bought 2 foundries, one in North Great George Street and one on Grafton Street, and they supplied the tooling for the printworks, which is here, which is the Irish Times, because this is the old Irish Times building. So all the tooling was then brought in by this guy Stephen Parker. He had a daughter called Franny, who married to Thomas Rudd, who's my great-grandfather.
That's amazing.
So that's another connection, which is like totally out of context. But I think things happen for a reason, always.
Do you believe in karma?
Big time. Big time, yeah.
Sometimes it can be a bit slow, I think.
Yeah, no.
And other times it can be instantaneous.
No, I do believe in karma, yeah.
For Medley, what's the dream gig? What's the thing you love hosting the most? Is there something?
Well, we do some really kind of interesting, we've had some really interesting gigs. Like we do a lot of work with kind of PR companies and, corporate events and corporate event management. We did a really, really cool gig about 2 years ago where I have an American client who I've worked for maybe 8 years ago as their personal chef. They rented Castle Oliver in Mitchelstown. 2 years ago, got a call from Arlene, who's the secretary, and said, "Listen, Andrew, we're coming to America. We're coming to Ireland." This was 2018, a really hot summer. Do you think we could get Castle Oliver again? But it had been sold. So I rang Susie, who owns Loch Coutre Castle, and I've done quite a few weddings down there in Gort. So basically, they booked it that night, and we were down there for 14 days, 30 people. And that was really interesting because I kind of knew them well, and I knew what they'd like, I knew what they wouldn't like. So I put together the whole package for them. So it wasn't only the food, it was a 14-day full-on, you know, there were kind of like, there were 18 adults, and there were, you know, 12 kids, and it was literally full-on because I had activities for them every single day. They flew into Shannon Airport, we collected them, we had buses on standby, I had golf buggies for the estate. We organised in Galway, in the Bay, Galway Bay Hookers, and we went out for the day. We did a 4th of July celebration. So the lake in front of the castle was quite low, so we had to hire in pontoon boats. And we built a barbecue on the island, and we had drone camera and photographer, and then we had a big party at the castle afterwards. And then I had my friend Una was my production manager because there was a lot of moving parts. So I cooked, and then she managed the event. That was like the coolest event I've ever done.
Andrew, do you ever go to McDonald's?
I do. It's my kind of another go-to comfort food. It's interesting when we're, you know, having big events here. Occasionally, I'll pop out and get food for the staff because, you know, when you're cooking something and you're doing, you know, very often what is like pretty high-end, you know, menu, you kind of just want junk food. And I'm not saying McDonald's is junk food, but it's kind of. It kind of is, you know. I love it, you know. So, and then we have a kind of a KFC across the road, there's Burger King down here. So, occasionally, but not very regularly.
Yeah, but you do.
I do, of course I do. Everybody does, and like most restaurateurs and chefs do as well.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
The weirdest thing I've ever eaten?
The weird is an unusual word. Maybe
yeah, kind of weird. No,
unusual.
like I haven't eaten dog meat to my knowledge. I haven't eaten cat to my knowledge. I haven't eaten horse meat to my knowledge. I have a pretty good, you know, kind of, you know, palate insofar as like there's nothing really I wouldn't eat. Sweetbread I've had. My mum used to cook sweetbread, which I think is pancreas. We used to have that a lot when we were kids growing up. But like, I suppose we were introduced to really interesting flavors from a very young age. I worked in Greece when I left school in a villa, and I used to look after the barbecue every day for the guests. And I used to go down to the sea. It was on an island called Syros, and I used to go snorkeling for sea urchins. So that was kind of unusual.
Would you cook the sea urchins?
No. I had a little kind of like, it was like a little kind of a nut press, and you open them up, and they have these little kind of like spines inside. They're kind of like an orangey color, and a little bit of lemon juice, and just eat them with a spoon.
It's been absolutely great fun talking to you. Thank you so much.
No, I'm delighted that you've asked me to get involved, and lovely to have you here. Yeah.
Thank you.